The moment Bella's fist pounded on Steph's apartment door that rainy Friday night, everything changed. "You're fired!" she screamed, mascara streaming down her face, looking nothing like the composed CEO he knew. But what Steph didn't realize as he stood there, his 7-year-old daughter peeking from behind his legs, was that Bella wasn't there to end his career. She was there to begin their life together. If you want to find out how a termination turned into one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever told, stay with me until the end. And if this story touches your heart, Steph Matthews hadn't planned on being a single father at 34. He hadn't planned on his wife walking out when their daughter Emma was just 3, claiming motherhood wasn't for her before disappearing to start a new life in Australia. He certainly hadn't planned on falling hopelessly in love with his boss, Bella Winters, the driven CEO of Winters Cape Designs, one of the fastest-growing architectural firms in the city. Life had a way of ignoring Steph's plans. Every morning followed the same careful routine. Wake at 5:30, prepare Emma's lunch, lay out her clothes, shower, make breakfast, wake Emma, help her dress, do her hair, eat together, brush teeth, gather backpacks, drive to school, drop off with a kiss and a promise, then race to work. Usually arriving 5 minutes late despite his best efforts, Bella noticed. Of course she noticed. She noticed everything. "Matthews, my office now." Her voice carried across the open-plan workspace on a particularly hectic Tuesday morning as Steph tried to slip unnoticed to his desk, his tie slightly askew, a coffee stain on his otherwise crisp white shirt. The other architects kept their heads down, the silence broken only by the gentle tapping of keyboards and the occasional clearing of throats. Everyone knew Bella's reputation for ruthless efficiency and impossibly high standards. In the 3 years since founding Winters Cape, she'd transformed it from a struggling startup to an industry powerhouse, leaving a trail of fired employees in her wake. Steph followed her into the glass-walled office, his heart pounding. He couldn't lose this job, not with Emma depending on him, not with the mortgage payments and school fees and the medical bills from Emma's asthma attacks last winter still piling up. "Close the door," Bella said, not looking up from her computer. At 36, she was strikingly beautiful in a way that intimidated rather than invited. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair always pulled back in a severe bun, designer clothes that somehow never wrinkled. Rumor had it she'd never taken a sick day, never arrived late, never left early. Some whispered she wasn't entirely human. "I'm sorry about being late again," Steph began, the words tumbling out. "Emma had a nightmare last night. And then this morning her favorite shirt was in the wash and there was a traffic accident on." "Stop!" Bella held up one perfectly manicured hand. "I didn't call you in here to listen to excuses." Steph swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am. The Henderson Project. Your designs. Is there a problem?" Steph felt his professional pride bristle. His work was the one area of his life where he still felt confident in control. Bella finally looked up, her dark eyes unreadable. "They're brilliant." "I what?" "Your designs. They're exactly what the client wanted. Better, actually." She pushed a folder across the desk, "Which is why I'm putting you in charge of the presentation next week." Steph stared at her, waiting for the catch. "Thank you. But the presentation is at 4:00 p.m. I have to pick Emma up from school at 3:15. Something flickered across Bella's face. Annoyance, disappointment. "This is a multi-million-dollar client, Matthews. I understand that, but my daughter comes first." "Yes, I know." Bella sighed, tapping her pen against the desk. "What if we move the presentation to 1:00 p.m.? Steph blinked in surprise. "You do that?" "The work is good. The client should see it presented by the person who created it." She said it matter-of-factly, as if rearranging a major client meeting for the sake of his childcare schedule was the most natural thing in the world. "Don't make me regret this accommodation. I won't." "Thank you." As he turned to leave, she added, "And Matthews, there's a dry cleaner next door to the office. Drop off your shirts in the morning. Pick them up at lunch. No more coffee stains." That was the first hint. Steph missed it completely. The second hint came 3 weeks later when Bella appeared beside his desk at lunchtime, a sleek leather portfolio in her hands. "Working through lunch again?" she asked, eyeing the half-eaten sandwich and the scattered drawings. "Just finalizing these revisions for the Park View Tower," Steph explained hastily, wiping a smudge of mayonnaise from his lip. "Walk with me," she said. It wasn't a request. Confused, Steph followed her to the elevator and down to the small park across from their building. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind that made the city almost bearable. Trees budding, birds singing, the harsh urban edges softened by nature's persistence. "You're burning out," Bella said as they walked along the winding path. "I'm fine," Steph insisted automatically. "You're not. Your work is still exceptional, but you're exhausted." "It shows." Steph wanted to deny it, but the truth was he was running on fumes. Between single parenting, the demanding job, and the constant financial stress, he barely remembered what a full night's sleep felt like. "What's your support system?" Bella asked. "My what?" "Your parents, friends, Emma's mother." "Who helps you?" Steph laughed, a short, humorless sound. "My parents live in Florida. They visit twice a year. Emma's mother is in Australia with her new husband, and friends," he shrugged. "Most disappeared after the divorce. Turns out people don't know what to do with a single dad." Bella was quiet for a moment, her face thoughtful. "What about childcare?" "School until 3:15, after-school program twice a week when I have late meetings. A neighbor watches her in emergencies, but she's elderly, so I try not to impose." "Have you considered a nanny on my salary?" Steph couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. Bella stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "I'm giving you a raise effective immediately and promoting you to senior design architect." Steph stared at her, certain he'd misheard. "Why?" "Because you're talented, because you're dedicated, because despite everything, your work never suffers." She handed him the portfolio. "And because I need you to lead the new Riverside development. It's a 6-month project, high-profile career-making, but it will require longer hours, some weekend work." Inside the portfolio was a contract outlining a salary increase that made Steph's eyes widen. It would mean financial security. It would mean being able to hire help. It would mean breathing room for the first time in years. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Say yes. Use some of that raise to get proper child care. Take care of yourself so you can keep producing work of this caliber." She glanced at her watch. "I have a meeting. Review the contract. Let me know by tomorrow." As she walked away, Steph called after her. "Why me?" "There are other architects in the firm with fewer complications." Bella paused, looking back over her shoulder. "I don't want architects without complications. I want architects who understand life is messy and beautiful and challenging, and who bring that understanding to their designs." That was the second hint. Again, Steph missed it completely. But wait, I need to pause here because what happens next will shock you. Just when Steph thinks he's finally getting his life together, everything falls apart in the most unexpected way. If you're enjoying this emotional journey, please hit that like button now and subscribe to our channel for more stories that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of second chances. The Riverside project consumed Steph's life for the next 3 months. With his new salary, he hired Mrs. Patel, a warm, grandmotherly woman who picked Emma up from school, helped with homework, and prepared dinner on the night Steph. For the first time since becoming a single parent, Steph felt like he could breathe. Emma thrived under Mrs. Patel's care, her nightmares becoming less frequent, her smile returning. And Steph found himself thriving too. His designs for Riverside were the best work he'd ever done, innovative yet practical, beautiful yet functional. Bella was pleased. More than pleased, she was impressed, though she showed it in her own reserved way, a nod of approval here, a rare, excellent work there. She began inviting Steph to client meetings, asking for his input on other projects, even occasionally joining him for working lunches where they discussed architecture and design with a shared passion that surprised him. He learned bits and pieces about her during these lunches, that she'd fought her way up in a male-dominated industry, that her father had been an architect who died before seeing his daughter follow in his footsteps, that she lived alone in a penthouse apartment. She designed herself with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. What he didn't learn, what he never thought to ask, was why such a beautiful, successful woman seemed so completely alone. One evening, as Steph was working late in the office, Bella appeared in his doorway, her usual tailored suit replaced by a simple black dress. "You're still here," she observed. Steph looked up momentarily disoriented after hours of focused work. "Just finishing these renderings. The client meeting tomorrow is at 10 Morgan a.m. You need rest." She stepped into his office, glancing at the drawings spread across his desk. "These are already perfect. Coming from you." "That's high praise indeed," Steph said with a tired smile. "I'm heading out to dinner," Bella said, an odd hesitation in her voice. "There's a new restaurant 2 blocks over." "Italian. I've heard good things." Steph nodded absently, his attention already drifting back to his work. "Sounds nice. Enjoy." A long silence followed, long enough that Steph looked up again, confused. Bella was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Would you like to join me?" she finally asked. The question hung in the air between them. Steph blinked, his tired brain struggling to process what was happening. Was his boss asking him to dinner? A work dinner? Surely. Except she was wearing a dress and looking at him with an intensity that made his heart beat faster. I can't," he stammered. "Mrs. Patel only stays until 8:30, and it's already 8:15, and Emma will be waiting." And of course, Bella cut him off, her expression shuddering. Another time, perhaps she was gone before Steph could respond, leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume and a growing sense that he'd missed something important. That was the third hint, and yes, Steph missed it completely. The Riverside project continued to progress. Summer turned to fall, and with it came Emma's 8th birthday. Steph planned a small party at their apartment, just Emma, a few friends from school, Mrs. Patel, and his elderly neighbor Mrs. Gonzalez. The morning of the party, as Steph struggled to hang streamers while simultaneously frosting a lopsided homemade cake, there was a knock at the door. "Coming," he called, wiping his hands on his jeans and leaving a streak of pink frosting. He opened the door to find Bella standing there, looking strangely out of place in his shabby apartment hallway in her designer clothes, holding a beautifully wrapped gift. "Bella," he said, shocked. "What are you doing here?" "You mentioned it was Emma's birthday," she said, as if that explained everything. "I brought her something." "How do you know where I live?" HR files. She peered past him into the apartment. "Are those dinosaur decorations?" "Emma's going through a paleontology phase," Steph explained, still trying to process Bella's unexpected appearance. "She wants to be a dinosaur scientist when she grows up." A small smile touched Bella's lips. "Smart girl." "Daddy, who is it?" Emma appeared beside Steph, her dark curls bouncing, eyes widening at the sight of the elegantly dressed stranger. "Emma, this is Ms. Winters." "My boss," Steph explained. "You can call me Bella," she said, kneeling down to Emma's level and offering the gift. "Happy birthday. I heard you like dinosaurs." Emma took the package cautiously. "Thank you. Would you like to come to my party? We're having cake and dinosaur games, and Daddy made dinosaur-shaped sandwiches, but they mostly look like blobs." Bella glanced up at Steph, a question in her eyes. "You're welcome to stay," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "It's nothing fancy, just a few kids and some dinosaur blobs." "But I'd love to," Bella said. And for the first time since he'd known her, she looked almost vulnerable. What followed was one of the strangest and most wonderful afternoons of Steph's life. Bella Winters, the intimidating CEO who made grown men tremble in boardrooms, sat cross-legged on his living room floor playing dinosaur trivia with a group of 8-year-olds. She knew an impressive amount about paleontology, it turned out, and had the children hanging on her every word as she described the differences between carnivores and herbivores. When Emma opened Bella's gift, a professional fossil excavation kit and a certificate for a weekend paleontology camp the following summer, her squeal of delight was so loud, Mrs. Gonzalez knocked on the wall in protest. "This is the best present ever," Emma declared, throwing her arms around Bella's neck. Steph watched in amazement as his normally reserved boss returned the hug, something soft and wistful crossing her face. Later, after the other children had gone home, and Emma was showing Mrs. Patel her gifts, Bella helped Steph clean up the aftermath of the party. "You didn't have to stay and help," Steph said, as they gathered paper plates and cups. "I wanted to," Bella tied off a garbage bag. "She's a remarkable child. You've done an amazing job with her. I'm mostly just trying not to mess her up too badly," Steph admitted. "That's not what I see." Bella's voice was quiet. "I see a father who's created a secure, loving home despite difficult circumstances. I see a child who's confident, kind, and curious about the world. That doesn't happen by accident." Steph felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. "Thank you. That means a lot." "The paleontology camp," Bella said, changing the subject. "I hope it wasn't overstepping. It's a weekend program, very well supervised. I thought perhaps it would give you a weekend to yourself." "It's incredibly generous," Steph said. "But I can't accept something so expensive. Consider it a bonus for your work on Riverside." Bella's tone made it clear the matter wasn't up for discussion. Besides, Emma's excitement was worth every penny. As she prepared to leave, Steph found himself reluctant to see her go. This version of Bella, relaxed, smiling with a smudge of cake frosting on her sleeve that she hadn't noticed, was someone he wanted to know better. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" he blurted out. "Not for work, just dinner." Bella went very still, her hand on the door knob. "Are you asking me on a date, Matthews?" Yes, I guess I am." Steph ran a hand through his hair, suddenly nervous. "Unless that's completely inappropriate because you're my boss. In which case, please forget I said anything." Bella studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Friday, 7:00 p.m. I'll text you the restaurant address." She opened the door, then paused. "And Steph, it's about time." With that cryptic comment, she was gone, leaving Steph standing in his doorway, wondering what exactly had just happened. Friday arrived with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Mrs. Patel agreed to stay late. Emma was excited about a movie night with her second grandma, and Steph spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to decide what to wear before settling on the one good suit he owned. The restaurant Bella chose was upscale, but not pretentious, with warm lighting and intimate tables. When Steph arrived, she was already seated, wearing a deep blue dress that made her look softer, somehow more approachable. Her hair was down for once, falling in gentle waves around her shoulders. "You look beautiful," Steph said as he sat down, the words escaping before he could overthink them. A faint blush colored Bella's cheeks. "Thank you. You clean up nicely yourself." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Away from the office, Bella was different. Still intense and brilliant, but also funny, passionate about architecture, art, and literature. She listened intently as Steph talked about Emma, about his dreams of designing sustainable housing, about the small joys and constant challenges of single parenthood. "Why architecture?" she asked over dessert, a chocolate soul they were sharing. "My father was a contractor," Steph explained. "I grew up on construction sites watching buildings take shape. There was something magical about seeing lines on paper transform into spaces where people would live their lives. I wanted to be part of that magic." Bella nodded, understanding in her eyes. "For me, it was about control, creating order from chaos, designing spaces that would make people feel something safe, inspired, at peace." "Is that why you started Winter's Cape?" A shadow crossed her face partly. "I was also tired of men taking credit for my designs, of being passed over for promotions I deserved." She took a sip of wine. "I decided if I couldn't change the rules, I'd make my own." and now you're one of the most respected firms in the city. Yes, she set down her glass, but success comes with sacrifices. Like what? Steph asked, genuinely curious. Bella hesitated, then said quietly, like connection, relationships, a life outside of work. She met his eyes. Until recently, I convinced myself those things weren't important. What changed? You did. The simple honesty in her voice took his breath away. You showed me it's possible to be exceptional at your work without sacrificing your humanity. After dinner, they walked through the city talking about everything and nothing. When they reached Bella's building, a sleek high-rise with those floor-to-ceiling windows she'd mentioned, she turned to him. "Would you like to come up for coffee?" she added quickly. Steph checked his watch. It was nearly midnight. I should get back to Emma. Understanding and something like disappointment flickered in Bella's eyes. "Of course, but I'd like to see you again," Steph said, stepping closer. "If you want that, too." "I do." Her voice was soft, vulnerable in a way he'd never heard before. In the soft glow of the streetlights, Steph leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, but quickly deepened into something that left them both breathless. "Good night, Bella," he whispered against her lips. "Good night, Steph." The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of professional boundaries and growing personal connection. At work, they maintained their boss-employee relationship, though Steph occasionally caught Bella watching him with a softness in her eyes that made his heart race. After hours, they discovered each other. Dinners, walks in the park, quiet evenings at Steph's apartment after Emma was asleep. Emma, for her part, was enchanted by Bella, especially after discovering her new friend knew so much about dinosaurs. Bella brought books on paleontology, took them to the Natural History Museum, and never talked down to Emma or treated her questions as anything less than important. "She makes you smile more," Emma observed one night as Steph tucked her into bed. "Does that bother you?" Steph asked, suddenly concerned. Emma considered this seriously. "No, I like when you smile." And she knows about Triceratops. "High praise indeed," Steph laughed, kissing her forehead. "Is she going to be your girlfriend?" Emma asked sleepily. "Would that be okay with you?" Emma nodded, her eyes drifting closed. "She looks at you like you're special, like how you look at me." Out of the mouths of babes, Steph thought, his heart full. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, disaster struck. The Riverside project, Steph's crowning achievement, hit a major snag when the City Planning Commission rejected a key element of the design due to new environmental regulations that had been implemented after their initial approval. The client was furious. The project timeline was in jeopardy. And suddenly, the warm, caring Bella that Steph had come to know disappeared, replaced by the hard-edged CEO fighting to save her company's reputation and a multi-million-dollar contract. "We need a complete redesign," she announced in an emergency meeting. "New environmental impact studies, revised structural plans, updated renderings. Everything that's weeks of work," one of the junior architects protested. "Then, I suggest you cancel your plans for the next month," Bella said coldly. "This project will not fail on my watch." She turned to Steph. "Matthews, you'll lead the redesign team. I need preliminary concepts by Monday." "Monday?" Steph stared at her. "That's 3 days from now. I have Emma this weekend. It's her school play. I promised her." "This is not negotiable." Bella cut him off, her voice like ice. "Everyone else, clear your schedules." We worked through the weekend. As the team filed out, shell-shocked, Steph remained behind. "Bella, please, I can't miss Emma's play. She's been practicing for weeks. This is business, Steph." Bella wouldn't meet his eyes. "Personal relationships can't interfere with what needs to be done. Is that what I am to you? A personal relationship that can be set aside when inconvenient?" The words came out sharper than he intended. Bella finally looked at him, her expression closed off. Right now, you're the lead architect on a project in crisis. That's all that matters to you. Maybe. Steph stood up, anger and hurt churning inside him. But I made a promise to my daughter, and I won't break it. Not even for you. Then you leave me no choice, Bella said, her voice dangerously quiet. Either you're here this weekend, or don't bother coming back on Monday. Steph stared at her, searching for any sign of the woman he'd fallen in love with. Finding none, he said quietly, I guess that's it then. He walked out of her office, heartbreaking, wondering how he could have been so wrong about her. Friday night, Steph sat in the elementary school auditorium, watching Emma play a very enthusiastic tree in her class production of The Giving Forest. His applause was the loudest when she delivered her one line perfectly, his smile genuine despite the ache in his chest. Saturday and Sunday, he took Emma to the park, helped her with homework, made pancakes in dinosaur shapes, and tried not to think about Monday morning, about clearing out his desk, about never seeing Bella again. Sunday night, after Emma was asleep, he sat at his kitchen table with his sketch pad, unable to help himself. The redesign for Riverside flowed from his pencil, a new approach that would satisfy the environmental regulations while preserving the essence of the original concept. He worked until dawn, pouring his heart into what would be his final contribution to Winter's Cape Designs. Monday morning, he called Mrs. Patel to ask if she could pick Emma up from school, then drove to the office one last time. The building was eerily quiet when he arrived. The design team, presumably still recovering from their weekend work marathon. Steph went straight to his office, placed the completed redesigned concepts on his desk, and began packing his personal items. He was nearly finished when he heard the door open behind him. So, it's true. You're leaving? Bella stood in the doorway looking exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her usually immaculate appearance showed signs of strain. You didn't leave me much choice, Steph said, continuing to pack. The team worked all weekend, Bella said. No one came up with anything viable. I did. Steph nodded toward the drawings on his desk. My parting gift. Bella crossed the room and picked up the designs, her eyes widening as she flipped through them. These are brilliant. When did you do this? Last night. Turns out I can be a good father and a good architect. Imagine that. Bella set the drawings down carefully. Steph, I don't. He closed his box of belongings. You made your position clear. The job comes first. I get it. But that's not how I want to live my life, and it's not the example I want to set for Emma. I was wrong, Bella said, the words seeming to cost her. I panicked. The client was threatening to pull out. The board was breathing down my neck, and I fell back on old patterns of pushing people away, of treating them as disposable. Yes, her voice was barely audible. It's what I've always done. Work is safe. Work doesn't leave. Work doesn't hurt you. Neither would I, Steph said softly. I know that now. Bella took a step toward him. I spent the weekend realizing what I was throwing away. Not just the best architect I've ever worked with, but the first person in years who made me feel like I wasn't alone. Steph wanted to reach for her, but held back. I can't be with someone who sees Emma as an inconvenience or a distraction. I don't. I swear I don't. Tears shimmered in Bella's eyes. I was jealous. If you want the truth, jealous of the certainty with which you choose her every time. No one has ever chosen me like that. Bella, let me finish, please. She took a deep breath. I went to Emma's play. What? I sat in the back. I watched her be the best tree that ever existed on a stage, and I watched you watching her with so much love and pride. Bella's voice broke, and I realized I want to be part of that. Not instead of your work, not competing with Emma, but alongside both, if you'll give me another chance. Steph was speechless, his anger melting away at the vulnerability in her eyes. I've never done this before, Bella continued. Never tried to balance work and love. I'm going to make mistakes, but I want to try with you. With Emma. Love, Steph repeated, his heart pounding. Yes, Bella met his eyes steadily. I love you, Steph Matthews. God help me, but I do. Steph set down the box he was holding and crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling Bella into his arms. I love you too, he whispered against her hair. But we need ground rules. Work stays at work. Family commitments are non-negotiable. And you never ever threaten my job again. Bella laughed through her tears. Agreed, though technically I never actually fired you. No. Steph raised an eyebrow. I was going to. I had the termination papers drawn up. She looked sheepish, but I couldn't sign them. That's why I came to your apartment Friday night. What? Steph pulled back to look at her. You never came to my apartment Friday night. I did. You weren't there. You were at Emma's play. I stood outside your door for 20 minutes, working up the courage to knock, to apologize, to tell you I couldn't fire you because I was in love with you. Bella shook her head. In the end, I couldn't do it. I went back to the office instead and worked through the weekend with the team, hoping you'd come back on Monday. So, when you said you're fired, I never said that. Bella looked confused, and that's when it hit Steph. The moment that would change everything, the moment that had already happened in a different way than he'd imagined, the moment Bella would finally come to his door, not to end his career, but to begin their life together. It hadn't happened yet, but it would. 3 months later, after the successfully redesigned Riverside project launched to critical acclaim, after Bella had become a regular fixture at their dinner table and in their lives, after Emma had started calling her Bellasaurus Rex, the highest dinosaur-related compliment possible. It finally happened. A rainy Friday night. A knock on Steph's apartment door. Bella standing there, mascara streaming down her face, looking nothing like the composed CEO he knew. What's wrong? Steph asked, alarmed. You're fired, Bella blurted out, then immediately burst into laughter at his confused expression. Sorry, bad joke. I've been practicing that line for weeks. You're insane, Steph said, pulling her inside out of the rain. Why are you crying? And why are you here? I thought you had a board meeting tonight. I did. Bella wiped at her smudged makeup. I told them I was restructuring the company, creating a co-CEO position. What? Why? Because I'm tired of working 80-hour weeks? Because I want dinner with you and Emma to be the rule, not the exception. Because I want a life outside that office. She took a deep breath, and I want that life with you. From behind Steph's legs, Emma peeked out. Are you going to live with us, Bellasaurus? Bella knelt down to Emma's level. Only if that's okay with you, paleontologist extraordinaire. Emma considered this seriously. Will you help me with my dinosaur diorama for the science fair? Daddy tries, but he doesn't know the difference between a Diplodocus and an Apatosaurus. It would be my honor, Bella said solemnly. Then, okay. Emma nodded decisively. You can stay. Steph pulled them both into his arms, his heart so full it might burst. Just like that. Huh? Just like that, Bella whispered, her eyes shining with tears and laughter and love. Sometimes, the most complicated problems have the simplest solutions. And as they stood there, the three of them together in the doorway, Steph realized that all the hints he'd missed, all the misunderstandings and false starts, had led them exactly where they were meant to be. Sometimes, you have to get fired from your old life to make room for a new one. Sometimes, the boss who intimidates you becomes the woman who completes your family. And sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the words, "You're fired." If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional journeys that remind us how life's biggest misunderstandings can lead to our greatest blessings. Remember, love doesn't always arrive in the package we expect. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a demanding boss with a secret soft spot for dinosaurs and single dads who are just trying their best.